references in early British sources. So we have Grayson, Malcolm, Wilkins, and to be honest, there are so many British accounts which detail the Dasam Granth that it would be impossible to include all of them, as well as Persian accounts, French accounts, Italian accounts. The list is quite big, as well as Sikh accounts and Punjabi accounts. And one of the accounts is Dasam Pasha Ka Granth, or Book of the 10th King, which was written by Guru Govind, is considered in every respect as holy as the Ard Granth of Nanak and his immediate successors. This quote is from Sketch of the Sikhs, Malcolm, 1805, page 176. We also find in Pant Prakash, Naveen Pant Prakash by Gyani Gyan Singh in 1877, on page 319, references to the different copies of the Dasam Granth and how those copies were sent to each Takht. And again, we find at Patna Sahib the Prakash of Dasam Granth and Hazur Sahib. We know at Damdama Sahib at Bara Mada Part from Dasam Granth is done each month. So there's evidence again for the praxis of the Dasam Granth. Again, we have to bear in mind that this might be an oral tradition and may have nothing to do with the scripture itself. We find references again in Bansawali Nama to the Dasam Granth, and Hari Ram Gupta in the History of the Sikhs narrates Maharaja Ranjit Singh keeping both Granths with him. And there's the artist Shof, who again painted a picture of Ranjit Singh sitting in front of two Granths. Again, it could be conjecture, it could be two copies of Ard Sri Guru Granth Sahib, or again it may be Ard Guru Granth Sahib and Dasam Granth, which would tie in with the travel narratives of the British. We find again references in Sikhanda Raj da Vidya. The Guru discovered that from reading the Ard Granth the Sikhs became feeble-hearted. Therefore, said the Guru, I myself will prepare such a Granth that the Sikhs from reading it will learn the art of ruling, the use of weapons and other skills, so that they will become fit for warfare. So from that very day he began the compositions of a huge volume, and when it was completed on Sunday, on the 8th day of the new moon, in the month of Bhadon, 1753 Bikrami, which is 1696, he named it the Granth of the 10th Sovereign. We also find a manuscript which is dated around 1696 from that same time. So again, would it be a possibility that we're talking about the same Granth here, or is this conjecture, or is this inaccurate to say so? We also find that in Rayatname there's hukams which are said to be from Guru Gobind Singh, which say recite and memorize the Bani from both Granths. And one interesting account was by Charles Wilkins, who visited Patna Sahib, and he noted, they told me further that some years after this book, Ard Granth of Guru Nanak Shah had been promulgated, another made its appearance, now held in almost as much esteem as the former. The name of the author has escaped my memory, but they favoured me with an extract from the book itself in praise of the deity. The passage has struck my ear on my first entering the hall, when the students were all engaged in reading. From the similarity of the language to Hindavi and many Sanskrit words, I was able to understand a good deal of it. So there we have quite a graphic description of the type of Bani which is contained within Dasam Granth. When we search through available manuscripts collections in Punjab, we also find that certain Gotke prayer books related to Shaheed Singhs are still present at some of the Takhts. And here is the first folio of Baba Deep Singh's Gotka Sahib, and it shows the Jap Sahib part. And this Gotka Sahib is a small pothi of almost all of the Dasam Granth, with the exception of Shastra Namala. So at the Takht Damdama Sahib we find this small pothi there, Now we have to ask ourselves, is this significant or is this insignificant? Or again, is it a story that is being concocted and that maybe this is not the Gotka of Baba Deep Singh? According to oral accounts by Baba Gurbachan Singh Pindranwale, the late Baba Santa Singh, and other great Sikh scholars that I interviewed, like Baba Santa Singh and the other Singhs from Damdami Taksal, they all verified that from what they'd heard from their teachers, that this in fact was the same recension that was studied by their own teachers. When we go to Hazur Sahib, we find that the Dasam Granth and Guru Granth Sahib were both Prakash side by side, with Dasam Granth not Prakash barabar to the Guru Granth Sahib, in fact, but 2 inches lower or a couple of inches lower than Ard-Sri Guru Granth Sahib. We also find that Hukamnama is taken from both Granths every day. Chaur Sahib is done over both Granths, and all in all, the rituals involved with both Granths are almost identical. When we move on to some particular compositions to try and make a relationship with Sikh praxis, for example, the Shastra Namala Puran, we find the Puranic myths from ancient times narrated in the format of Braj Bhasha and court language of in the times of Guru Gobind Singh. And what we find is that the Akalis themselves and the Sikhs that the British encountered in the times of the Anglo-Sikh wars were heavily armed and almost worshipped weapons. It was noted by some British travellers. And here we find the part Askirpan Khando Kharag Tupak Tabar Artir Saif Sarohi Saiti Yeh Hamare Peer Tir Tuhi Saiti Tuhi Tabar Tarwar Naam Taharo Jo Japai Pehe Sindh Pavpar. So Maharaj again is equating God to the power of the sword, and in the end Maharaj says, those who remember your name crosses the dreadful ocean of Maya, of existence. And here in the background we have the star Bunga of Nakali, and we find many of the symbolic representations of the weapons in Shastra Namala and in the Dasam Granth on those Bunge, which we find in museums in the UK, and we find in depictions of the Nahang Singhs of the past. So would we be incorrect to say that this Maryada has no correlation with Dasam Granth, or would we say that it's another oral tradition which the early Khalsa had that was not related to any scripture at all? When we move into the realm of the Dasam Granth, we find that the Dasam Granth itself contains a world view, and a world view is a perception of the world, or the perception of the world by the author. And what is interesting, earlier on when we were discussing Ek Oankar and the possibility that the way that we interpret Ek Oankar now may be different to how Ek Oankar was interpreted before, we again have to come back to this idea of worldview. Now here we have 2 lists. One list is before and after. And what do I mean before and after? Before the Singh Sabha movement and after the Singh Sabha movement. So we have the idea of the world being mystical, and then the world becomes material, mechanical. We have the idea of Hukam and Qudrat, and then we have the idea of materialism or materialistic. We have this idea of oneness, interconnectedness. And then we have an idea of duality, which is separate and controllable. Then we go from mythological representations of history to purely historical accounts. Then we have symbolic nature of the Dasam Granth and praxis, for example, the 5 Ks,